Have you ever heard of Rayman? If you're not a certifiable unk like me, you'd probably think of him as, oh, the guy from the Raving Rabbids games. Which pains my soul, because Rayman used to be the main character of the franchise, and then the Rabbids were so popular they became the lead, and Rayman took a back seat. Kinda like what happened with the Minions and Gru. Never underestimate the power of screaming slapstick creatures, I guess. As a kid, I was introduced to Rayman when I went to the computer store with my dad, and they had their bargain bin games they were trying to clear out for like $5. I saw Rayman 2, knew nothing about it, and asked him to get it for me. I think he got it for me right then and there, but then told me he lost it later or something, and then I was surprised when I opened it at Christmas a few months later. To this day, it's still one of my favorite Christmas memories. Rayman 2 was really my introduction to PC gaming. It's a solid platformer with 3D effects and pretty fun mechanics. And I know that I'm underselling it here, but it received mostly 90% and up scores from reviewers when it came out. To me, it was so captivating. I finished the entire game during that week until Christmas break ended. I generally don't replay story driven games, and so after that week, Rayman 2 sat in a jewel case for almost 20 years. My dad then was cleaning out our collection of CDs and asked me what I wanted to do with it. I don't necessarily love carrying stuff around with me if I have to, but I had such strong happy memories about this game that I didn't just want to get rid of it. I figured I could make an ISO of the game and then get rid of it, but I also didn't want to toss a perfectly good CD. I thought about selling it, but I didn't want a copy of the game I didn't officially own anymore. So I had this grand idea to sell the game and then take the money and buy a digital version. So I booted up Steam, searched for Rayman 2, and to my dismay, they didn't have it. So I Googled it, and a website popped up selling the game for about $5. I was wary at first because anybody could just make an ISO and then sell the game, but I looked into it and it was legit. This website was called GOG, or GOG as some people like to pronounce it, which stands for Good Old Games. Their original mission was to make older games still purchasable and fix any incompatibilities to make them playable on modern hardware. Because DRM, or copy protection, is a major hurdle to game preservation, they also have a policy on not selling games with DRM. I'll get back to my Rayman story in a second, but this mission is insane, especially in our own nothing and be happy capitalistic hellscape. When you buy a game on Steam, a movie on Prime, or a book on Kindle, you're actually just buying a license to use or interact with the content, and you don't really own it. There have even been cases of companies removing content users have purchased. For example, Kindle removed copies of 1984 from users' devices due to their own licensing issues. GOG, on the other hand, lets you download an offline installer with all the necessary game files, which then you can store in your hard drive in your bunker and install it, and when the internet goes down and the collapse of society occurs, you can keep playing your games. You could put it on a thumb drive, send it to your friend, and both of you could install and run it at the same time. You really shouldn't do that though, and you should support developers, and this is the reason why a lot of studios are wary of letting GOG sell their games, but it is sadly a revolutionary belief that you should be able to own the games that you actually buy. Especially as we move away from physical media, this is a great way to still be able to own your games and not just be licensed to play them if a server check works correctly. I bet you're thinking though, Vim, they only do this for older games because people aren't going to buy them anyways, and nobody cares about them anymore. Wrong! They have modern games that you could buy right now. Expedition 33, Cyberpunk, Silksong, Baldur's Gate 3. You can buy all of them right now on GOG, store all of the files offline, and never worry about someone removing your ability to play them again. GOG even offers the patch files between versions when updates happen for the games, so you don't have to re-download the whole game if you want to store it offline. So confident that I could play and keep a digital version, I ended up selling my copy of Rayman 2 on eBay for about $5. I then took the proceeds, went to GOG, and they had a bundle deal going on, and I bought Rayman 1, 2, and 3, all for about $5. Which, funny enough, after I played Rayman 2 those many years ago, I wanted to play Rayman 1, so I borrowed it from the library, but it didn't work because it was already too old. So GOG would let me have the experience of Rayman 1 that I missed out as a kid. Now, here's where I have a confession to make. Rayman 2 has been gathering digital dust on my GOG shelf for about 5 years. I installed it one time when I bought it to see if it would work, wasn't in the mood to play it, and then forgot about it because I don't really use GOG. And herein lies GOG's biggest hurdle: the network effect and switching costs. The network effect is a phenomenon where the value of a good or service is derived from the number of people actually using it. I would say that GOG has objectively a better model than other platforms like Steam and Epic. Conceptually, I like knowing that when I buy a game on GOG, I own it. But in reality, I end up buying all my games from Epic and Steam, and this is because all my friends exclusively use Epic and Steam. So moving on to switching costs. Switching cost is the phenomenon where it costs more for a customer to switch from one brand or platform to another. This cost could be financial, emotional, or even psychological. The cost of two products might be the same, but there are externalities that prevent it from being a simple switch. Tidal always offered higher quality music streaming, and YouTube Music was always included with YouTube Premium, but everybody went to Spotify because everybody was already using Spotify. And the cost from switching and moving all your playlists from Spotify to another was just too high for most people. This is a major reason why Epic offers their weekly free game. They are trying to break the path dependency people have built over time where they automatically pick Steam to buy their game. If Epic does this long enough, though, they're hoping that they will hit a critical mass, and the first thought individuals will have when they want to buy a new game is to open the Epic store and buy it there instead of Steam. GOG faces the exact same hurdles that Epic does when capturing market share from Steam. If your aim is to own your games and not just license them, GOG is objectively the better choice. But the path dependency of a new game comes out, where do I buy it, goes to Steam, prevents us from considering any alternatives. Additionally, the network effect can apply to the catalog of games. Epic still hasn't been able to win because when somebody wants to buy a new game, even if Epic has retrained consumers to check Epic Store first, Epic doesn't always have the games you want to play. Steam, on the other hand, already has a larger presence, so publishers will target publishing on Steam first, further conditioning users that you should just buy your games on Steam because it will almost always be there. So jumping back to Rayman 2 for a second, to explain my thoughts here. Over this last winter break, I took a couple weeks off and stayed with my family. I didn't have my PC, and only had my phone and my GameSir controller, which I plugged my phone into. I had gotten burnt out of Fortnite Mobile, along with all the touchscreen games that I've downloaded, and I wanted to play a real game. And that was when I remembered some videos about playing Steam games on your phone. Most of the YouTube videos I had seen were showing off an app called GameHub. It's an app where you log into your Steam account and you can play your Windows Steam games on your phone. Now, I'm not necessarily recommending that you do this because it's an unofficial app. Steam doesn't own it, it's owned by GameSir, and it requires you to log into your Steam account through their app, which is a major security concern. Alternatively, there's an app called Winlator that lets you run Windows games on Android, but you have to install them manually. GameHub and Winlator are using some pretty cool open source tech to run these games, which let me know in the comments if I should do a deep dive on both of them. Anyways, I didn't want to trust GameHub with my Steam account, so I instead installed Winlator. Steam still has DRM on their games, so you have to first install Steam and then install and launch your games through the Steam platform, which I might be able to do on Winlator, but then I remembered I had offline installers that don't include DRM. I logged into my GOG account on my phone's browser, downloaded the install files, booted up Winlator, which can read the phone's downloads folder, and I installed Rayman 2 right there. It took a little while and some controller configuration, but I was playing Rayman 2 natively on my phone, almost 25 years later to the day. And you know what? The experience was pretty awesome. The game is hard capped at 60 FPS, but I didn't experience any dips below that while playing, and the experience was just so good that I kept playing it for hours. I literally got chills. I could play a PC game right on my phone, and it just worked. I did have to do some configuration, but it was mostly a painless experience, and I didn't run into any copy protection issues installing it. I later went ahead and downloaded some other GOG games I got for free from Amazon. Side note, Amazon Luna will actually just give out GOG games for free if you have a Prime account. So the background footage has just been recordings of me playing all of these free games I've gotten. So you've probably read the title, and you're wondering, why do I think that GOG could win mobile gaming? Win might not necessarily be the right term, but I think that GOG has an insane opportunity right now, especially how they positioned their business model to focus on retro games and by having a no DRM policy. People want to play full game experiences on their phones. There have been some successes like Minecraft, Stardew Valley, Dredge, but it takes a lot of effort for a developer to port their game to mobile, and the opportunity is there. Nearly 50% of gaming revenue comes from mobile gaming, But the majority is due to gotcha games. People are clearly willing to purchase games, especially on their phones, but there just isn't enough high quality games on mobile. My personal theory here is that phones are just less expensive or more versatile than PCs and consoles, so people focus on purchasing phones rather than PCs and consoles, and the insane level of mobile gotcha game revenues is really just because people want to spend money on gaming, but there isn't enough supply of high quality games on mobile to satisfy the demand, and gotcha fills that void. So GOG has an opportunity here to advertise both playable classic and indie masterpieces on mobile. If you look at the Game Hub cover art, it proudly displays Hollow Knight Silksong as playable on Android, but you still have to buy it on Steam first. If GOG had a GOG Galaxy app on Android that uses the same underlying technology as Winlator and lets you buy Windows games that are certifiably playable on Android, think of how many games people would actually buy on their platform. GOG had a huge misstep here, where they could have prepared an Android version of GOG Galaxy beforehand and advertised that they were the only official place where you could buy Silksong and play it on Android on launch day. Steam went down because so many people bought it and were trying to play it on release day. Even though the game could easily be playable on mobile, Team Cherry didn't make an official mobile version, and mobile users were unable to officially play it on release day. Additionally, with save syncing between mobile and PC, GOG could help break that path dependency of just buying it on Steam, because now there's this new neural path. Where can you buy it once and play it on your phone and computer? I know I would pick GOG because I know it's playable through them on PC, but now there's a value add of being able to play it on my phone too, and that's just enough to get me to switch from the default of buying it on Steam. Had they done this, going forward, users would now be trained to check GOG first on launch of most non-graphically demanding games, knowing they could play it on both platforms, but only needing to buy it once. Additionally, now you have users being exposed to the entire GOG marketplace because GOG focuses on retro games, and a lot of older games already play well on mobile. Potential users are also enticed to spend more money on GOG's marketplace instead of a mobile gotcha. So what does GOG need to do right now to avoid another misstep like missing out on Silksong? First, they need to aggressively build GOG Galaxy for Android. They already have the branding in place with the PC installer. They just need to make the app similar to Winlator, but make the discovery, compatibility, purchase, and install process way simpler for mobile. They could even hire the developers that made Winlator and contribute back to the open source projects that make the emulation possible. This could help the entire community as it would provide the resources to fix some of these emulation bugs for retro games. And it would also give them some of that goodwill that Valve has seemed to garner by contributing to similar projects like Proton and Fex. Next, mobile gamers and potential mobile gamers need to be taught that controllers, mice, and keyboards all work on phones. At the moment, most Android users probably don't know that you can just plug in a controller to the phone, and most of the time, it just works. The GOG Galaxy app could have a little warning before you buy a game that the game is best experienced with a controller or mouse and keyboard, and some hardware recommendations. Sure, it's not as seamless as a Steam Deck or Switch where the controllers are attached to the device, but now it's a matter of training. I carry my GameSir controller with me if I know I'm going to be waiting around somewhere. It would be the same as me bringing my Switch, but now I only have to bring one gaming device, my phone. I can even throw in one of those small 8BitDo controllers in my pocket. Right now, this is really just an issue of training and informing, not really a limitation of the hardware or software anymore. Once this is ready, GOG needs to advertise this functionality aggressively, especially during high-profile releases. Obviously, a phone is less powerful than a gaming PC, and modern AAA titles probably won't run on your phone for now, but something like Silksong works perfectly. The next unknown indie hit that comes out would be a great candidate for these marketing campaigns. Finally, and this is huge, GOG needs to do this before Steam or Epic does. Valve has already invested a ton into Fex Emu, which is just a different emulation technology than the one Winlator uses, so it's really only a matter of time before Steam for Android releases. GOG needs the first mover advantage in the PC games on mobile space. And to be honest, I want GOG to do well. More competition in markets is always better for consumers, and GOG has a great mission of game ownership and preservation that I align with. I want more game studios to see that a game can be successful without invasive DRM and to sell their games on GOG. I want to be able to easily play more games on my phone. As our phones become more powerful and as the struggle for any form of ownership worsens, I want to see GOG become an example for other companies on the right way to treat their users. Now, I'm clearly a small channel here, but I've often thought about how I would do things if I were to make it as a YouTuber. And one of those things would be to do sponsorships from companies that I think are bettering the world. And from what I can tell, GOG has been one of those companies I would love to do sponsorships from. In the meantime, though, while I'm still a small channel and can't do sponsorships, I've applied to their affiliate program, and if I get accepted, we'll put that link in the description so you can support me as a creator and GOG as a good guy company. And if I don't get accepted, I'll just put their main website in the description for you to check out. Anyways, this channel is going through a bit of an identity crisis right now, but I primarily focus on technology, gaming, and movies, basically stuff I find interesting and enjoyable. I'd like to hit 1,000 subs by the end of 2026, so it would be awesome if you subscribed. But for now, this is Vimitation, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.